The debate over Iran has always been polarizing. No surprise for a country that's been on the wrong end of United States foreign policy for nearly 4 decades. And with the withdrawal of the US from the Iran nuclear deal this year, those calling for the hardest line against the Islamic Republic, starting with more sanctions, have received a boost. On the other side of the debate, those pushing back against what many say is an agenda for regime change are reporting an online backlash, the likes of which they've not seen before. However, the Twitter accounts doing the trolling may not be the organic opposition voices that they're made out to be. For all the accusations of disinformation and fake news from both sides, it's rare that we can point to facts, a location, and actual personnel explaining the modus operandi of an organized troll factory. The Listening Post's Will Young investigated this story, and the trail has led not to Tehran, Washington, D.C. or Riyadh, but to Tirana in Albania.
Iran has now joined Russia as a country accused of using the internet to sow chaos for its adversaries. While evidence of the effectiveness of Iran's campaign is far from conclusive, last month Twitter announced it had suspended some 800 accounts said to be involved in coordinated manipulation it said was linked to the country. But there's another side to this story. Thousands of accounts, many of them likely automated, that are boosting trends presenting the Islamic Republic as the implacable enemy of the West and of the rights of its own people.
The turning point was really Trump's election. Once it became very clear from the outset that there would be really heightened hostility with Iran, there was a profusion of new accounts, anonymous accounts who were very single-mindedly and purposefully going after people who talked about Iran with nuance. The majority of it is abusive, libelous, ad hominem, and intended to silence.
Mindful of the difficulty for Western journalists to be able to have access to Iran, the majority of journalists are looking to Twitter as a proxy of where the debate is going, where the sentiments are, where the trends are going. Twitter attacks and these social media campaigns have at least initially been successful in giving the impression that this small minority who's supporting the Trump administration's policy actually constitute a majority or a growing majority.
The simplest kind of social media engineering is not much more than a numbers game. Twitter bots, created by the hundreds or thousands, can be programmed to tweet and retweet automatically in order to boost trends artificially. On a smaller scale, individuals or groups can copy, paste and tweet using several accounts to multiply the impact of their ideas. Twitter would not share with us its own methodology for detecting fake accounts, but openly available metadata can tell us a lot about where to look.
When there's loads of bots, you might see hundreds and hundreds, in some cases thousands of accounts created on a specific day. The majority of the accounts tweeting on the Free Iran hashtag, the Iran regime change hashtag, from the period of late December to May, were created within about a 4-month window. What that would suggest is that a lot of the activity on those hashtags, Free Iran and Iran regime change, are bots.
But there's only so much you can discover online. So we followed rumours of an anti-Iranian government fake account factory to Albania. Between 2013 and 2016, the United Nations, at the behest of the United States, relocated some 2,900 members of an exiled Iranian opposition group calling itself the People's Mujahedin of Iran, or MEK as it's otherwise known, to this camp behind me, less than 1 hour's drive from the capital, Tirana. Former members of the group confirm that part of this heavily guarded facility is a troll farm dedicated to social media manipulation on an industrial scale.
We would receive daily orders highlighting the main ongoing issues in Iran. For example, high prices, unemployment, poverty. We had to bring them to the attention of the world by tweeting them and blaming them on the Islamic regime in one way or the other. This was our duty on a daily basis in cyberspace.
The daily order might tell us which newspapers had published a favorable news piece, or if a politician such as John McCain or John Bolton had spoken against the regime in an interview. We would then like the tweet and leave comments as if they genuinely came from people in Iran. Any piece of news that could be used to their benefit and against the Iranian regime would be gold, regardless of where it came from, whether it be Israel, the US, Trump, anyone.
Our stance towards those who even slightly sided with the regime or were critical of our organization, such as Trita Parsi, was that they were hirelings and puppets of the regime. We'd label them as exported soldiers of the mullah's regime who are enjoying themselves in America.
Because of my platform, I have received a significant amount of Twitter attacks of this kind, but I am nowhere near being alone. This is actually a very pervasive phenomenon. The big victim of this is that we don't have a rational conversation about policy towards Iran, or even what the situation is like inside of Iran right now.
Case in point, at the end of 2017 and the beginning of this year, a series of protests flared up in a number of Iranian cities. Hashtags promoting regime change spiked, shaping the narrative for many in the mainstream media. We now know that much of that online activity was externally engineered.
A lot of the activity around the protest in Iran has been exploited by whoever's setting up these bot networks, a certain community, as it were, that are promoting the MEK and using unrest in Iran as a platform. I have found what I believe to be bot accounts supportive of the Iranian government, and they do appear to be bots, but at the moment they seem far smaller in volume.
Our orders would tell us which hashtags to use in our tweets. There were popular hashtags such as national demonstrations or I will overthrow. They told us to use these hashtags to make them more active. It was our job to provide coverage of the protests by seeking out, tweeting and retweeting videos, as well as adding our own comments to them.
Overall, I'd say that several thousand accounts are managed by about 1,000 to 1,500 MEK members. It was all very well organized, and there were clear instructions about what needed to be done. Any other online activities or web surfing were prohibited. They would tell us that the devices provided by the organization were like weapons, and our tweets were bullets to shoot at the enemy. So why waste them?
The cult-like mujahedin-e has almost no support in Iran. Many still remember the domestic terror campaign it ran in the years following the revolution, and how MEK forces fought alongside Saddam Hussein during the Iran-Iraq war. However, the organisation has cultivated powerful friends abroad. Britain lifted its designation as a terrorist organisation in 2008. The EU did the same in 2009, and the United States in 2012. After the MEK was forced out of Iraq, it was the US who brokered a deal to resettle them in Albania, where their social media campaign against the Islamic Republic continues.
This activity is very much focused on the debate in the West, because I think the intention is in part to prepare public opinion in the West for whatever kind of regime change agenda Washington is pursuing.
If the regime continues its nuclear aspirations, it will have bigger problems than it has ever had before.
These MEK members, they have no way back. They are absolutely desperate and, are probably willing to get behind anything.
It's not like what happens on social media stays there anymore. It filters its way into mainstream media. There is so much propaganda, so much fake news. It would take very little to create a wave of what looks like popular Iranian opinion against the government that's not necessarily real.
The MEK did not agree to our request for an interview, telling us that plots involving agents of Iran posing as journalists made any contact impossible. That leaves only defectors stranded in Albania to tell the story of how keyboard warriors use and abuse social media to promote an agenda for regime change.